Once he's gone, everything is ours. That's what I heard from my kitchen while supposedly napping after physical therapy. 8 weeks in a wheelchair, and my own family thought I'd become invisible. Just another broken old man waiting to die. But they were wrong about the dying part. I'm Austin Stevens. At 69, a drunk driver's mistake had put me in this wheelchair temporarily. What it revealed about my son and daughter-in-law would be permanent. Brandon and Melissa were in my kitchen counting money that wasn't theirs yet. $2.8 million in assets. My house, my construction business, the trust fund they'd discovered during their secret searches through my desk. All mapped out like funeral arrangements. They whispered about my deteriorating condition like it was Christmas morning, about taking control for my own good, about decisions I supposedly couldn't make anymore. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Let me tell you how 43 years building foundations taught me exactly how to tear them down. October 15th, 2024, 7:43 in the morning. That's when my 2019 Honda Pilot met a drunk driver running a red light on Camelback Road. The other guy walked away without a scratch. I didn't walk away at all. 2 fractured vertebrae, 3 broken ribs, and a shattered left femur. The doctor said 6 to 8 weeks in a wheelchair, then physical therapy. Could be longer, they warned. At 69, bones don't heal like they used to. $23,000 in vehicle damage. The Pilot was totaled. But the real cost wasn't the metal. It was watching my family's masks slip off. The first week, Brandon and Melissa were perfect. Brought groceries, helped with medications. Melissa even cooked my favorite pot roast. But by week 2, something shifted. Little comments, meaningful looks between them. "Dad, you need to think about practical arrangements," Brandon said during week 3. He was standing in my kitchen, holding my mail like he owned it. "This house has stairs. The business needs daily decisions." "I'm managing fine," I told him. "Are you, though?" Melissa chimed in from the doorway. "Yesterday you couldn't reach the coffee maker. What if you fell?" That's when the visits became inspections. They'd arrive unannounced, checking if I was coping. Brandon started answering my business phone when it rang during their visits. Melissa would reorganize my medications without asking. "We're worried about your judgment," she said during week 5, picking up my checkbook from the kitchen counter. "Making financial decisions while on pain medication isn't wise." "I'm not on pain medication. The bottle says otherwise." I checked later. 3 pills missing from a prescription I hadn't touched. Someone wanted a paper trail showing I was impaired. Week 6 brought the nursing home brochures. "Just looking at options," Brandon said, spreading glossy pamphlets across my dining table. "Sunrise Manor has an excellent rehabilitation program." "I'm rehabilitating here." "Dad, be realistic." He gestured at my wheelchair. "This could be permanent. You need professional care." But the breaking point came week 7. I was napping in my recliner when I heard them in the kitchen. Their voices carried clearly through the thin wall. "He's deteriorating faster than we thought," Brandon was saying. "Good," Melissa replied. "The sooner we can make decisions for him, the better. Did you see how he struggled opening that jar yesterday?" I opened it. He just watched. "Exactly. He's giving up. Maybe we should talk to his doctor about cognitive decline." "Can we do that? Legally?" "If we're concerned for his welfare, absolutely. Once we establish he's mentally incompetent, the power of attorney kicks in automatically." Mom, my blood went cold. These weren't caregivers. They were vultures. "How much do you think the total is worth?" Melissa asked. "The house alone is $650. Business assets, maybe $800,000. Then there's the investment accounts, the life insurance, the trust fund." "The trust fund he thinks we don't know about?" Brandon laughed. "Found those statements in his desk last week. $1.1 million managed by Thompson's law firm. He probably forgot he told me about Thompson years ago." "So we're looking at what? 2.8 total?" "Conservative estimate. Could be more." They were wrong about one thing. I hadn't told Brandon about David Thompson. He'd been searching my private papers. That night, staring at the ceiling, I realized I'd spent 43 years building something for people who saw me as an obstacle to claiming it. The accident hadn't just broken my bones, it had revealed my family's true character. Time to remind them that a broken leg doesn't mean a broken spirit. By week 8, their boldness became breathtaking. Brandon started bringing paperwork to our family meetings, power of attorney forms, healthcare directives, documents that would legally transfer control of my life to them. It's just temporary, he explained, spreading papers across my coffee table, until you're back on your feet. If you're back on your feet, Melissa's expression said. The numbers they were chasing weren't small change. Stevens and Associates Construction, founded in 1981, was worth more than they realized. The business generated $890,000 annually. Equipment alone was valued at $580,000. Current contracts totaled $212,000. My house, purchased in 1987 for $89,000, was now appraised at $650,000. Scottsdale real estate had exploded. The mortgage was paid off years ago. But the real prize was my trust fund, $1.1 million, managed by David Thompson's law firm since 1998. Brandon had discovered statements during his unauthorized desk searches, but he didn't understand the trust's structure. Neither did Melissa, though she pretended to. Dad, we found some concerning financial documents, she said during a Thursday visit, holding up my private bank statements. This trust fund shows irregular withdrawals. Are you being scammed? I stared at the papers in her hand, statements from my locked desk drawer. Where did you get those? They were on your kitchen counter, Brandon lied smoothly. We're worried someone's taking advantage of your condition. The withdrawals were my quarterly charitable donations, $30,000 annually to the local children's hospital, but explaining that would validate their snooping. My finances are my business. Not if you're being exploited, Melissa shot back. These withdrawals don't make sense. $2,500 here, $3,000 there. Classic elder fraud patterns. She was reading from her phone. Someone had coached her on elder abuse terminology. That weekend, I called David Thompson from my bedroom. Door locked, voice low. We'd been friends since high school. He'd handled my legal affairs for 25 years. Austin, I've been expecting this call, David said. How bad is it? They're circling like sharks. Found my trust statements. Brought power of attorney papers yesterday. Did you sign anything? Hell no, but they're getting desperate. Talking about cognitive decline, nursing homes. Yesterday, Melissa mentioned incompetency hearings. David was quiet for a long moment. Austin, the trust has protections we built, and specifically for this scenario. Remember that elder abuse clause? I remembered. In 2019, after watching my neighbor's son drain his father's accounts, David had suggested adding specific language. If I was deemed to be suffering elder abuse, the trust would become irrevocable. The beneficiaries would lose all inheritance rights. We need documentation, David continued, evidence of their exploitation attempts. What kind of evidence? Recordings would be ideal, video if possible, unauthorized access to your finances, attempts to isolate you or control your medical care, anything showing a pattern of exploitation. That's when the plan crystallized. If Brandon and Melissa wanted to play games with my money, I'd show them how the game really worked. Monday morning, I made 3 phone calls. First to Robert Mitchell, a retired Marine who ran a security company. We'd worked together on several commercial projects. His company specialized in home security systems. Robert, I need cameras. Discreet ones. Can you install them without anyone knowing? How discreet are we talking? Family members I don't trust. They're making visits, going through my things. I need everything recorded. When? Tomorrow, while they're at work. Second call went to my bank. Tom Rodriguez had been my account manager for 15 years. Tom, I need you to flag my accounts for unauthorized access attempts. My son has been asking about my finances. What kind of flagging? If anyone tries to get account information or make transactions without my physical presence and 2 forms of ID, I want to know immediately. Consider it done. Third call was back to David Thompson. David, I want to update my will. Complete revision. What kind of revision? The kind that teaches people the difference between earning respect and demanding inheritance. By Tuesday afternoon, Robert Mitchell had installed 8 cameras throughout my house. Living room, kitchen, dining room, my office, the front hallway, hidden in smoke detectors, picture frames, a decorative clock, all feeding to a secure server only I could access. Systems armed, Robert said, showing me the app on his tablet. Motion activated, audio enabled. Everything's time-stamped and stored. You'll have evidence of everything that happens in this house. How long before they find them? Robert smiled. These aren't amateur hour toys, military-grade concealment. Unless they're specifically looking for surveillance equipment, they'll never spot them. Wednesday brought the first test. Brandon and Melissa arrived for their usual check-in, and I started recording everything. The confrontation came Thursday afternoon. Brandon arrived with a briefcase, and Melissa carried a folder thick with papers. They meant business. "Dad, we need to talk," Brandon said, settling into my living room chair like he owned it. "Some difficult decisions can't wait anymore." I stayed in my wheelchair by the window. The camera in the bookshelf had a perfect angle on all three of us. Motion activated, audio recording everything. "What decisions?" Melissa spread papers across my coffee table. "Power of attorney documents, healthcare directives, financial authorizations. We've spoken with several attorneys, and given your condition, my condition is temporary." "Is it?" Brandon leaned forward. "Dad, you've been in that wheelchair for 8 weeks. The doctor said 6 to 8 weeks maximum. You're not improving." "Who told you that?" "We called Dr. Martinez's office yesterday," Melissa said smoothly. "Asked about your prognosis." Another lie. HIPAA laws prevented medical information sharing without my consent, but they didn't know I knew that. "The point is," Brandon continued, "you need help making important decisions. The business is suffering. Bills are piling up. Yesterday, Mrs. Henderson from accounting called asking about overdue invoices." "Which invoices?" "The Morrison project. $38,000. Due last week." I knew the Morrison project inside and out. Payment wasn't due until next month, and Mrs. Henderson didn't handle accounting. That was Sarah Chen's job. Brandon was testing if I knew my own business. "Morrison payment isn't due until December 1st. "Are you sure?" Melissa pulled out her phone. "Because according to this email—" "From who?" She hesitated. "Sarah Chen. Sarah Chen doesn't send collection emails. She calls directly." Brandon's jaw tightened. He'd been caught in the lie, and we all knew it. "Dad, the details don't matter," he said, switching tactics. "What matters is you're struggling to manage basic responsibilities. Yesterday, you couldn't open a pickle jar. You opened it for me. Because you asked me to. Because you jumped up before I tried. That's not how I remember it." The conversation was becoming surreal. They were rewriting reality in real time, trying to gaslight me into believing I was more helpless than I was. "Look," Melissa interjected, "we're not trying to take over your life. We're trying to help you maintain dignity while accepting new limitations." "By signing these papers?" "By letting people who love you handle things you can't handle anymore." I picked up the power of attorney document. Standard legal language, but with broad authority. Financial decisions, medical choices, property management, everything. "This gives you control of my bank accounts." "Temporarily," Brandon said. "My business?" "Until you recover." "My house?" "If necessary." I set the papers down carefully. "What if I don't want to sign?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Brandon and Melissa exchanged glances. "Dad," Brandon finally said, "we really hope it doesn't come to that." "Come to what?" "Legal intervention. If family can't help, the state sometimes has to step in." There it was, the threat beneath the concern. Sign voluntarily or they'd pursue involuntary measures. "You'd take me to court?" "We'd seek guardianship if necessary," Melissa said quietly, "for your own protection." "Protection from what?" "Poor judgment, financial exploitation, medical neglect." "Who's exploiting me?" "We don't know yet, but these irregular trust fund withdrawals suggest someone's taking advantage." I almost laughed. The charitable donations they'd discovered weren't exploitation. They were evidence of my clear thinking, but explaining that would give them ammunition against my competency. "I need time to think about this." "How much time?" Brandon asked. "A week?" "Dad, decisions can't wait forever. Every day you delay, problems get worse." "1 week." Melissa leaned forward. "Austin, can I be frank? We're trying to help you maintain independence within realistic limits. But if you're not willing to accept help voluntarily, you'll force it. We'll do what's necessary." After they left, I sat alone in my living room staring at the papers they had forgotten to take with them. Power of attorney forms pre-signed by witnesses. Healthcare directives already notarized. They'd come prepared to leave with my signature, one way or another, but they'd also left me something valuable. 8 cameras worth of evidence showing their true agenda. Threats disguised as concern. Lies presented as facts. Coercion wrapped in family loyalty. I called David Thompson that evening. "David, they just threatened guardianship proceedings." "Based on what grounds?" "Poor judgment, medical neglect, financial irregularities. The charitable donations? They think someone's scamming me." David was quiet for a moment. "Austin, guardianship proceedings require evidence of incapacity. Medical testimony, financial records, witness statements. What medical evidence do they have?" "They claimed to call my doctor." "Did they?" "Unlikely. HIPAA violations." "What financial evidence?" "Trust fund statements they stole from my desk." "Stolen documents aren't admissible evidence." "What about witness statements? Who would testify that you're incompetent?" I thought about it. My physical therapist saw me 3 times a week. Dr. Wilson knew my progress better than anyone. My accountant, my bank manager, my business clients, none of them had reported concerns about my competency. "They don't have witnesses," I realized. "They have threats," David corrected, "but threats aren't evidence." "What do I do?" "You document everything. Keep recording. And Austin, don't sign anything until we have a chance to respond properly." That night, I reviewed the camera footage from their visit. Crystal clear audio and video, Brandon's threats about state intervention, Melissa's admission that they were prepared to pursue legal action. They wanted to play hardball. Time to show them what 43 years of construction negotiations had taught me about leverage. Friday morning brought Robert Mitchell back to my house for the follow-up installation. While Brandon and Melissa thought they were wearing me down with pressure tactics, I was building the strongest case possible. "How's the system working?" Robert asked, checking camera angles on his tablet. "Perfectly. Captured everything from yesterday's conversation." "Good audio quality?" "Crystal clear. They threatened guardianship proceedings if I don't sign power of attorney papers." Robert's expression darkened. He'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan before starting his security business. Family exploitation hit close to home after watching his own grandfather get swindled. "Austin, I want to add 2 more cameras. One in your bedroom, one in the office. If they are going through your personal papers, we need documentation. They've already searched my desk, found bank statements, trust fund documents." "When?" "Last week sometime. Had to be when I was at physical therapy." "We can catch them next time. I'm also installing motion sensors on your file cabinets and desk drawers. If anyone opens them, you'll get an alert immediately." While Robert worked, I called Susan Clark at Adult Protective Services. David Thompson had recommended her as someone who specialized in elder abuse cases. "Mr. Stevens, tell me about your situation." I explained the wheelchair, the pressure tactics, the threats. Susan listened without interrupting. "How long has this been going on?" "About 3 weeks of escalation. Started subtle, got more aggressive." "Are you in immediate danger?" "Not physical danger, but they're pushing hard for financial control." "Have they taken any money yet?" "They've tried. My bank flagged unauthorized access attempts yesterday." "Good. Mr. Stevens, I need to document this properly. Can you come to my office next week? I'm in a wheelchair. I make house calls for mobility issues. How about Tuesday?" "Perfect." After hanging up, I realized Susan hadn't questioned my mental capacity, hadn't suggested I needed help making decisions. Professional caregivers treated me like an adult, facing temporary physical limitations. Only my family treated me like a child. Robert finished the installation around noon. "Systems complete. You've got full coverage now, plus motion alerts. Anyone goes through your private papers, you'll know within seconds." "How do I access the footage?" "App on your phone, tablet, or computer. Everything's stored securely off-site. Even if they somehow found and disabled the cameras, the recordings would still exist." That afternoon, David Thompson visited for what appeared to be a routine legal consultation. Actually, we were preparing counterattack strategies. Austin, the footage you've captured changes everything. Threats, lies, unauthorized property searches. That's a clear pattern of elder abuse. What about their guardianship threats? Empty bluster. They'd need medical evidence you can't provide for yourself. Your physical therapy records show steady improvement. Your business continues operating normally. Your financial decisions remain sound. David spread papers across my dining table. However, we're going to strengthen your legal position significantly. The documents he'd brought were comprehensive. A revised will, removing Brandon and Melissa as beneficiaries if elder abuse occurred. An updated trust with ironclad protections against exploitation. A healthcare directive specifying that only licensed medical professionals could make competency determinations. Most importantly, David continued, I'm filing a preemptive motion with the court. If they attempt guardianship proceedings, we'll have evidence ready showing their true motives. What kind of evidence? The recordings, obviously, but also financial records proving they've been attempting unauthorized account access, documentation of their property searches, witness statements from your medical team. My medical team? Dr. Wilson, your physical therapist. She's prepared to testify that your cognitive function is completely normal. Your improvement exceeds expectations. That evening, I tested the new camera system. Motion sensors worked perfectly. When I opened my desk drawer, my phone buzzed with an alert. Video footage showed exactly which drawer opened and when. Brandon and Melissa thought they were watching a helpless old man slowly losing control. Actually, they were performing for an audience of federal-grade security cameras. Tomorrow would bring their next pressure visit. They'd demand answers about the power of attorney papers, push harder for signatures. But this time, I'd be ready with more than just refusal. This time, I'd have documentation of everything they said and did. Time to see how bold they really were when evidence mattered. Monday arrived with my scheduled physical therapy session at Desert Springs Rehabilitation Center. 3 times weekly, 90 minutes each session, working with Dr. Patricia Wilson. By week 8, my progress was remarkable. Austin, your mobility improvement is ahead of schedule, Dr. Wilson said, checking my range of motion. The fracture's healing beautifully. Strength tests show 80% normal function. When can I ditch the wheelchair? Honestly, you could probably manage short distances with a walker now. Full mobility within 2 weeks. But I kept that information private. If Brandon and Melissa knew my recovery was accelerating, they'd accelerate their pressure tactics. The physical therapy waiting room was always busy. Other patients, family members, healthcare staff. That Monday, I noticed Brandon and Melissa talking quietly near the reception desk. They'd followed me to therapy. Mr. Stevens, the receptionist called, your family members asked to speak with Dr. Wilson about your progress. Without my permission? They said they were concerned about your care plan. HIPAA laws prohibited sharing medical information with family members unless I consented, but Brandon and Melissa were banking on receptionist confusion about privacy rules. Please tell Dr. Wilson I want to speak with her privately first. 5 minutes later, Dr. Wilson found me in the exercise room. Austin, your son and daughter-in-law want to discuss your condition. They seem worried about cognitive decline. What cognitive decline? Exactly what I was wondering. You're one of my sharpest patients. Memory perfect, follow instructions precisely, ask intelligent questions about your recovery. What did you tell them? Nothing yet, but they're insisting on a family meeting about your deteriorating mental state. I made a decision that would change everything. Schedule the meeting today in the group therapy room. Are you sure? Completely sure. I want witnesses. An hour later, we convened in the large therapy room. Brandon and Melissa sat across from me, Dr. Wilson at the head of the table. 4 other patients were using the parallel bars nearby. 2 nurses monitored exercises. Everyone could hear our conversation. Thank you for meeting with us, Dr. Wilson, Melissa began. We're deeply concerned about Austin's cognitive decline since his accident. Dr. Wilson looked confused. What cognitive decline? He's been making poor decisions, financial irregularities. Yesterday, he couldn't remember basic details about his business. I stayed silent, letting them dig their hole deeper. Can you give me specific examples? Dr. Wilson asked. Brandon leaned forward. He forgot when the Morrison payment was due. Couldn't remember which employee handles accounting. Simple things he's known for years. I see. Austin, do you remember those conversations? I remember them lying about both facts, I said quietly. Morrison payment isn't due until December 1st. Sarah Chen handles accounting, not Mrs. Henderson. He's confused, Melissa interjected. We showed him the paperwork. Forged paperwork, I corrected. There is no Mrs. Henderson in my accounting department. The room went very quiet. Other patients stopped exercising to listen. Dr. Wilson's expression hardened. Are you suggesting his family members are providing false information about his condition? I'm suggesting they want me declared incompetent to access my finances. That's ridiculous, Brandon said, but his voice cracked slightly. Is it? I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. Because I have 8 weeks of conversations where you've discussed my death like Christmas morning. Melissa's face went pale. Austin, you're being paranoid. Am I? Last Tuesday, you said my deterioration was happening faster than expected. Quote, good. The sooner we can make decisions for him, the better. I never said that. I have it recorded. The therapy room fell completely silent. Even the nurses had stopped working to listen. Dr. Wilson's voice was ice cold. Mr. Stevens, are you alleging elder abuse? I'm alleging attempted elder abuse. They want financial power of attorney based on false claims of incompetency. These are serious accusations, she said, looking directly at Brandon and Melissa. They're false accusations, Brandon shot back. Dad's been paranoid since the accident, making wild claims, hiding from family, refusing help. What kind of help? Dr. Wilson asked. Practical assistance, financial management, medical decisions. He doesn't need help with medical decisions. His cognitive function is perfect. You're not qualified to make that determination, Melissa said defensively. Dr. Benedowit. Wilson's credentials hung on the wall behind her. Doctorate in physical therapy, board-certified neurological specialist, 15 years experience with traumatic brain injury rehabilitation. Actually, I'm extremely qualified, and I'm seeing no evidence of cognitive decline whatsoever. Because you don't see him daily, Brandon argued. You don't see the confusion, the memory lapses, the poor judgment. What poor judgment specifically? Financial decisions. He's been making irregular withdrawals from accounts, possibly being scammed by fraudsters. Those withdrawals are charitable donations I've made quarterly for 6 years, I said calmly. $30,000 annually to Phoenix Children's Hospital, completely documented. The other patients were now openly staring. One elderly woman in a walker had moved closer to hear better. Dr. Wilson stood up. I think this meeting is over. Mr. Stevens, your cognitive function is completely normal. Your family's allegations are unsupported by medical evidence. Thank you, I said. Furthermore, she continued, I'm required to report suspected elder abuse to Adult Protective Services. Brandon and Melissa exchanged panicked glances. That won't be necessary, Brandon said quickly. This was just a misunderstanding. Was it? Because from where I sit, it looks like family members making false medical claims to justify financial exploitation. We're trying to help him, Melissa protested. By lying about his mental capacity? The room erupted in murmurs from other patients. I caught fragments. Shame on them. Poor man. Disgusting behavior. Dr. Wilson, I said, could you document today's conversation in my medical records? Absolutely. Every word. Brandon stood abruptly. We're leaving. This is inappropriate. Yes? Dr. Wilson agreed. It is. As they rushed toward the exit, the elderly woman with the walker blocked their path. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves, she said loudly. That man deserves better family than you. Other patients nodded agreement. The public humiliation was complete. But I wasn't done with them yet. Tuesday brought Susan Clark's scheduled visit. Adult Protective Services investigations required thorough documentation, and Susan wasn't taking any chances. Mr. Stevens, before we begin, I want you to know that everything we discuss is confidential unless there's immediate danger, Susan said, settling into my living room chair. Tell me about your family situation. I explained 8 weeks of escalating pressure, threats, and manipulation. Susan took notes steadily, asking specific questions about timelines, witnesses, and evidence. You mentioned recordings? Complete audio and video documentation of their conversations and actions. May I review some examples? I pulled up the camera footage on my tablet. Susan watched yesterday's therapy session confrontation, Brandon and Melissa's threats about guardianship, their lies about my medical condition. This is remarkable evidence, she said quietly. Clear pattern of exploitation and attempts, false medical claims, attempted financial coercion. What happens next? I need to interview your family members separately. Based on what I've seen, there are grounds for criminal referral. Criminal? Elder abuse is a felony in Arizona. Attempted financial exploitation, filing false reports about competency, threats of wrongful institutionalization, these aren't civil matters. Wednesday afternoon, Susan returned with Detective Maria Santos from Phoenix PD Elder Abuse Unit. They wanted comprehensive statements and all available evidence. Mr. Stevens, Detective Santos began, we're treating this as potential criminal elder abuse. That means anything you tell us could be used in prosecution. I understand. For 2 hours, we reviewed camera footage chronologically. The conversation where Brandon and Melissa discussed my death like Inheritance Day, their searches through my private papers, the forged documents about my business, the therapy session lies. This is one of the clearest cases I've seen, Detective Santos said. Usually, elder abuse is hard to prove because it happens behind closed doors. You've documented everything. What charges are we looking at? Attempted exploitation of vulnerable adults, conspiracy to commit fraud, potentially identity theft if they've tried accessing accounts. Each carries 2 to 5 years in prison. That evening, David Thompson arrived with final legal documents. The revised will was ready for signature. The updated trust included ironclad elder abuse protections. Most importantly, we'd prepared a complete disinheritance of both Brandon and Melissa. Austin, once you sign these, they lose all inheritance rights permanently. Even if you die tomorrow, they get nothing. What about the business? Transfers to a charitable trust benefiting veteran employment programs. The house goes to Phoenix Children's Hospital. All liquid assets support scholarship funds. And if I recover completely? Then you maintain control of everything while alive, with new protections preventing future exploitation attempts. I signed everything Thursday morning. Friday brought the confrontation I'd been anticipating for weeks. Brandon and Melissa arrived demanding answers about the therapy session, humiliation, and Susan Clark's visit. Dad, we need to talk about this APS investigation, Brandon said, barely controlling his anger. You're embarrassing the family with false accusations. Which accusations are false? All of them. We've been trying to help you, and you're repaying that care with slander. Is it slander if it's recorded? Melissa leaned forward aggressively. Austin, this paranoid behavior proves you need mental health evaluation. Normal people don't secretly record family members. Normal family members don't search through private papers and threaten guardianship. We never threatened anything, Brandon lied. I pulled out my tablet and played Wednesday's therapy session footage. Their own voices filled the room. Legal intervention. If family can't help, the state sometimes has to step in. That's taken out of context, Melissa protested. What context makes threatening guardianship acceptable? We were explaining options if you continued refusing reasonable help. Help with what? I'm managing my finances perfectly. My business is operating normally. My medical recovery is ahead of schedule. Says who? Dr. Wilson, Detective Santos, Susan Clark, everyone except you two. Brandon's face flushed red. Detective Santos? Why are police involved? Because elder abuse is a crime. There's no elder abuse happening here. I played more footage. Their conversation about my deteriorating faster than expected. Melissa calling my condition good because it accelerated their control timeline. This is entrapment, she said desperately. This is evidence, I corrected. 8 weeks of documented exploitation attempts. We're your family, Brandon shouted. Everything we did was for your benefit. Whose benefit? Because on Tuesday you told Melissa the trust fund was worth $1.1 million. Yesterday you told Detective Santos you didn't know about any trust fund. He went pale. I never said that. I played the recording from week 7. Found those statements in his desk last week. $1.1 million, managed by Thompson's law firm. You've been secretly recording us for weeks, Melissa accused. I've been protecting myself for weeks. From what? From this. I gestured at their panicked faces. From family members who see my accident as their opportunity. Brandon tried a different approach. Dad, we can work this out. Family disputes don't need lawyers and police. We made mistakes, said things in frustration, but our hearts were in the right place. Where exactly is the right place for discussing my death like your retirement plan? We never did that. I played their kitchen conversation. Once he's gone, everything is ours. $2.8 million, conservative estimate. The silence stretched for a full minute. Austin, Melissa finally said, what do you want from us? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We're still family. Family doesn't steal from each other. We never stole anything. You tried. The attempted ATM withdrawals last week. $12,000 in unauthorized access attempts. Brandon's mouth fell open. How did you know about that? My bank flagged them immediately. Everything's documented. David Thompson chose that moment to arrive, carrying a thick legal folder. Gentlemen, ladies, he said formally, I'm here to deliver official legal notification. He handed both Brandon and Melissa identical envelopes. What is this? Brandon asked, tearing his open. Complete disinheritance from Austin Stevens' estate, David announced, effective immediately. Both of you have been permanently removed as beneficiaries from his will, trust fund, business assets, and property holdings. Melissa stared at her papers in shock. He can't do this. Actually, he can and has. The documentation is comprehensive and legally binding. On what grounds? Attempted elder abuse, financial exploitation, fraudulent medical claims, threats of wrongful institutionalization. We'll contest this in court, Brandon said desperately. With what evidence? Everything you've done for 8 weeks has been recorded. Audio, video, timestamps, witnesses. You don't have a case. What about the business? I've worked there for 15 years. The business transfers to a charitable trust upon Austin's death. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. You can't fire me. I'm family. You stopped being family when you started counting my money while I was still breathing, I said quietly. Detective Santos arrived as Brandon and Melissa were leaving. Perfect timing. Mr. and Mrs. Stevens, you're under arrest for attempted exploitation of a vulnerable adult. The handcuffs were the final touch on 8 weeks of documented evidence. Justice served with quiet power, exactly as planned. Monday morning brought my most important physical therapy session yet. Dr. Wilson had scheduled a comprehensive evaluation to document my true recovery status. Today, the cameras would capture something even more powerful than their lies, my actual capabilities. Austin, I want to test your real mobility today, Dr. Wilson said as we entered the therapy room. No wheelchair. Let's see what you can actually do. On the parallel bars stretched across the room, other patients worked with their therapists nearby. The setting was perfect for what I'd planned. Are you ready to show everyone how much progress you've really made? I nodded and transferred from my wheelchair to the parallel bars. For 8 weeks, I'd let Brandon and Melissa believe I was deteriorating. Time to reveal the truth. I took my first independent step in 2 months, then another, then a third. The therapy room went quiet as other patients stopped to watch. My legs were steady, my balance solid. 2 months of hidden exercises in my bedroom had paid off. Outstanding, Dr. Wilson called out. How does it feel? Like freedom. I walked the full length of the parallel bars without assistance. Turned around, walked back. My recovery wasn't just ahead of schedule. It was nearly complete. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Wilson announced to the room, this is what determination looks like. Mr. Stevens has exceeded every recovery milestone. Applause erupted from patients and staff. The same elderly woman who'd confronted Brandon and Melissa last week was beaming. "Honey, you've been holding out on us," she laughed. "You could probably dance if you wanted to." "Maybe next week." But the real audience wasn't in the therapy room. It was sitting in Detective Santos's interview room across town. At that moment, Brandon and Melissa were being questioned about their elder abuse charges. The timing was intentional. While they explained to police why they thought I was incompetent, I was demonstrating complete physical independence to medical professionals. Dr. Wilson documented everything in my medical records. Patient demonstrates full mobility, excellent balance, normal strength, and complete cognitive function. Recovery exceeds all expectations and medical protocols. That afternoon, Susan Clark visited with her final report. Adult Protective Services had completed their investigation. "Mr. Stevens, we're closing your case with a finding of substantiated elder abuse attempt," she said. "Your family members engaged in clear exploitation efforts." What happens to them? Criminal charges proceed through the district attorney. We're recommending prosecution to the fullest extent. This case will serve as an example that elder abuse has serious consequences. What about their defense? What defense? They were caught on camera planning financial exploitation. Their own words condemn them. Wednesday brought the preliminary hearing. David Thompson drove me to the courthouse, walking, not in a wheelchair. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. "Austin, are you prepared for this?" David asked as we entered the building. "I've been preparing for 8 weeks. The hearing room was packed. Brandon and Melissa sat with their attorney, looking desperate. Detective Santos presented evidence methodically. Camera footage, audio recordings, witness statements from Dr. Wilson and Susan Clark. "Your Honor," the prosecutor began, "this case represents textbook elder abuse. The defendants systematically exploited the victim's temporary physical vulnerability to attempt financial fraud." Brandon's attorney tried damage control. "Your Honor, my clients were genuinely concerned about Mr. Stevens' welfare. Their actions, while perhaps misguided, came from a place of love." "Counselor," the judge replied, "love doesn't involve secretly searching bank statements or threatening guardianship proceedings." The defense had no response. Judge Martinez reviewed the evidence for 30 minutes before rendering his decision. "Mr. and Mrs. Stevens, the evidence against you is overwhelming. You exploited your father's temporary disability to pursue personal financial gain. You lied to medical professionals, threatened legal coercion, and attempted unauthorized access to his accounts." "Then, Your Honor, we can explain," Brandon began. "Silence. You'll have your opportunity to speak at sentencing. For now, I'm ordering you to have no contact with the victim. Any attempt to approach Mr. Stevens or his property will result in immediate arrest." "What about bail?" "Bail is set at $50,000 each, cash only." As court officers led them away in handcuffs, I felt no satisfaction, just relief that it was finally over. Thursday brought unexpected visitors to my house. Tom Rodriguez from the bank, Sarah Chen from my business accounting, even Mrs. Patterson from the Children's Hospital. "Austin, we heard about what happened," Tom said. "The banking industry sees elder abuse constantly. What you did, documenting everything, that's how we stop these crimes." Sarah Chen was more personal. "Mr. Stevens, when your son tried to change our business account signatures last week, I called you immediately. Something felt wrong about the whole situation. You did the right thing." "The Children's Hospital Board wanted to thank you personally," Mrs. Patterson added. "Your charitable donations have funded our pediatric wing for 6 years. Learning that your family tried to stop those donations, it's unconscionable." That evening, I sat in my living room reviewing 8 weeks of camera footage. The evidence that had saved my independence and sent my exploiters to jail. But more importantly, it had revealed something essential about character. Physical weakness never equals mental incapacity. Temporary vulnerability doesn't mean permanent helplessness, and family loyalty can't be demanded. It must be earned. I walked to my kitchen without assistance, made coffee, and called Robert Mitchell. "Robert, you can remove the security cameras now." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. The threat is over." "What about future protection?" "I think I've learned enough about protecting myself." At 3 weeks after the preliminary hearing, the full scope of consequences began unfolding. What started as family betrayal had become a criminal case study that would reshape elder protection laws in Arizona. District Attorney Patricia Coleman called me personally. "Mr. Stevens, your case has attracted national attention. The Elder Justice Coalition wants to use your evidence in congressional testimony about strengthening abuse prevention." "What kind of testimony?" "Showing how technology can protect vulnerable adults. Your camera system documented exploitation that would normally be invisible to authorities." "I just protected myself. You protected every older adult in America. This case proves that careful documentation can stop elder abuse before financial damage occurs." The legal proceedings moved swiftly. Brandon and Melissa's attorney attempted plea negotiations, but the evidence was too strong for reduced charges. "They want to plead guilty to misdemeanor exploitation charges," David Thompson informed me during our weekly meeting, "in exchange for avoiding felony prosecution. What's your recommendation?" "Reject the plea. They committed serious crimes. Misdemeanor charges send the wrong message about elder abuse consequences." The business implications were equally significant. Stevens and Associates Construction needed new management immediately. I couldn't return to full-time work, and Brandon's termination left a leadership vacuum. Sarah Chen, my longtime accountant, had a suggestion. "Mr. Stevens, what about promoting Tommy Martinez to operations manager? He's been your lead foreman for 8 years, knows every client, understands the business inside and out." Tommy Martinez, 29 years old, married with 2 young children, exemplified everything Brandon wasn't. Hardworking, honest, loyal. He'd started as an apprentice carpenter and earned every promotion through skill and character. "Tommy, are you interested in running day-to-day operations?" I asked during our Thursday meeting. "Mr. Stevens, I'd be honored. But I want to be clear. This is your company. I'm here to execute your vision, not replace it. The company needs fresh leadership, someone who values respect over entitlement." "You have my word. Stevens and Associates will represent your values, not just your name." The contrast with Brandon couldn't have been sharper. Where Brandon demanded authority, Tommy asked for guidance. Where Brandon counted inheritance money, Tommy built business value. Within 2 weeks, Tommy had restored client confidence and improved operational efficiency. Several customers who'd been concerned about business stability during my recovery returned with new contracts. "Mr. Stevens," called Janet Morrison, our biggest commercial client, "Tommy Martinez explained your situation, what your family did to you. That's despicable. But Tommy's leadership has been outstanding. We're expanding our contract for next year." The social consequences were equally dramatic. Word spread quickly through Scottsdale about Brandon and Melissa's arrest. The response from friends and neighbors was overwhelming. "Austin, we had no idea what you were going through," said my neighbor Carol Jensen. "If we'd known your family was pressuring you, we would have helped." "How could anyone know? They were careful to appear helpful in public." "That makes it worse. Fake concern while plotting behind your back." The broader community reaction was swift and decisive. Brandon had been active in the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce. His membership was quietly terminated. Melissa had worked part-time at Southwest Bank. Her employment ended the day after her arrest. Social ostracism in close-knit communities is often more punitive than legal consequences. But the most significant fallout was institutional. Phoenix Children's Hospital, beneficiary of my charitable donations for 6 years, was appalled to learn about the exploitation attempts. "Mr. Stevens," called Dr. Amanda Foster, the hospital's chief administrator, "we've established the Stevens Family Dignity Fund in your honor. It will support elder abuse prevention programs throughout Arizona." "That's unnecessary." "It's essential. Your case shows that elder abuse can happen to anyone. Successful business people, people with strong support networks, people who think they're protected. Abusers target vulnerability, not weakness. The fund would educate families about warning signs, provide legal assistance for victims, and train healthcare workers in abuse recognition. More importantly, it would ensure that my experience helped protect others facing similar exploitation. Detective Santos provided updates on the criminal investigation's expansion. Mr. Stevens, we've discovered additional evidence during the search warrant execution. Your son and daughter-in-law were planning more extensive fraud than we initially realized. What kind of fraud? They'd researched nursing home costs, identified facilities that would accept direct insurance payments, and planned to have you institutionalized while managing your estate. Even if I recovered? The plan was to prevent your recovery, keep you sedated, isolated from outside contact, and gradually assume complete control. The chilling calculation in their scheme was breathtaking. They weren't just exploiting my temporary vulnerability, they were planning to make it permanent. How long have they been planning this? Based on computer records, at least 6 months before your accident, they were researching guardianship laws, elder care facilities, and estate planning loopholes. My accident hadn't created their greed. It had simply provided the opportunity they'd been waiting for. The trial date was set for February. David Thompson expected a quick conviction given the evidence quality, but Brandon and Melissa's desperation was making them unpredictable. Austin, they're claiming you psychologically manipulated them into making incriminating statements, David warned. Their new strategy is arguing that you entrapped them. With what? Secret mind control? They claim you deliberately appeared more helpless than you were to provoke their protective instincts, then recorded their responses without consent. Arizona is a one-party consent state for recordings. Exactly. Their defense has no legal foundation. The absurdity of their argument was almost laughable. They were claiming victimhood for being caught victimizing me, but it revealed something important about their character. Even facing overwhelming evidence, they couldn't accept responsibility for their choices. They'd rather portray themselves as victims of my clever planning than admit they'd exploited my genuine vulnerability. Some people learn from consequences. Others just look for someone else to blame. As January ended, I reviewed everything that had happened since October, 3 months that had revealed the true character of everyone in my life. Family members who saw my accident as their opportunity, friends and neighbors who offered genuine support, professionals who treated me with dignity despite my limitations, and most importantly, my own strength in the face of betrayal. The legal process would conclude soon, but the personal lessons would last forever. February brought the trial's conclusion and my life's new beginning. After 4 months of legal proceedings, Brandon and Melissa pled guilty to attempted elder abuse and fraud. They received 2 years in prison, 5 years probation, and permanent restraining orders preventing any contact with me. Justice had been served, but that wasn't the end of my story. Austin, what are your plans now? Dr. Wilson asked during my final physical therapy session. My recovery was complete, better than complete. I was stronger than before the accident. I'm thinking about the future differently, I told her. 43 years building a business, I never thought about what happens when you can't work anymore. You seem to be working just fine. But Tommy Martinez runs daily operations now. I've learned to delegate, trust other people's judgment, focus on big picture decisions instead of micromanaging everything. The business was thriving under Tommy's leadership. Revenues were up 12% from the previous year. Client satisfaction had improved significantly. Most importantly, the company culture reflected respect and dignity, values Brandon had never understood. Mr. Stevens, Tommy had said last week, I want to discuss profit sharing for all employees. If we're building something together, everyone should benefit from the success. That was exactly the kind of thinking that earned long-term respect. David Thompson helped restructure my estate planning completely. The new will reflected hard-learned lessons about family relationships and earned versus assumed loyalty. Austin, you're leaving nearly $3 million to charitable organizations and employee retirement funds. Are you sure about disinheriting Brandon permanently? He made his choice. Actions have consequences. What if he changes, demonstrates genuine remorse? David, for 6 months, he planned to institutionalize me for money. That's not a mistake. That's character. But I'd also learned about positive character, Dr. Wilson's professional integrity, Susan Clark's dedication to protecting vulnerable adults, Detective Santos's thorough investigation, Robert Mitchell's technical expertise and moral clarity, Tommy Martinez's leadership and work ethic, Sarah Chen's loyalty and business wisdom. People who treated my temporary vulnerability as a reason to help, not exploit. The Phoenix Children's Hospital Board invited me to speak at their annual fundraising dinner. 300 guests, most unaware of my recent experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, I began. 6 months ago, I thought I understood family loyalty. I thought blood relationships guaranteed trustworthiness. I was wrong. The audience listened intently as I described the exploitation attempts, the legal consequences, and the community support that saved my independence. But I also learned that real family isn't defined by genetics. It's defined by character, by people who see your vulnerability as reason to protect you, not exploit you. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. More importantly, donations that night exceeded previous records by 40%. A month later, Susan Clark called with an unexpected request. Austin, Arizona State University wants to interview you for their social work program. Your case has become required reading for elder abuse prevention courses. What would I tell students? That documentation and preparation can prevent exploitation, that vulnerable adults have rights and resources, that speaking up about abuse takes courage, but silence guarantees victimization. These conversations taught me something essential about turning pain into purpose. My family's betrayal had hurt, but it had also equipped me to help others facing similar exploitation. Today, I live independently in my house, run my business through trusted leadership, and support causes that protect vulnerable adults. I've learned to walk again, literally and metaphorically. More importantly, I've learned the difference between family by birth and family by choice. The people who stood with me during my vulnerability, those are my real family now. Sometimes the hardest lessons teach us the most valuable truths about character, dignity, and the quiet power that comes from refusing to be victimized. If you're watching this because you're facing family exploitation, remember, you're stronger than you think. Help is available, and documentation's your best protection. Your vulnerability doesn't make you helpless. It reveals who truly cares about your well-being. Stand up for yourself, even if you have to do it from a wheelchair.